So today we will have a look at a few ways we can add space to our music and patches, arranging the sounds, orchestrating the different parts, and all inside the modular environment. The idea for this video was chosen by my patrons, so if you're interested, maybe you would also like to join our little community on Patreon and on the Patreon Discord channel. As always, there are links in the description to the different sections of the video so you can jump around, and you can also download the patches and have a closer look. And the first thing we will look at is using the end of cycle output of a function generator to bring in other elements, so not everything is happening at the same time. In this case, I'm using Rampage from Befaco, which is also available in hardware, but this can work with other function generators as well in VCV and in hardware. So basically, the end of cycle output, the EOC, will send out a trigger whenever the function finishes its cycle. So I can trigger the first cycle and set it to trigger the second function when it finishes its cycle. So if I connect the end of cycle to the trigger input of the second function and I trigger the first function, have a look on the scope, you can see that the second function will only start after the first function ended. Here is the first function and this is the second one. Once again, we have the first function. Let's wait for it now. The first function, and then it ended, and then the second function started here. Right, so here I have something ready. I have here the sec3 sequencing two FM operators. It will sound like this. Right now they are both always playing. It's quite repetitive and can get boring quite quickly. So we can in this case use Rampage to add space. So I will add Rampage, and what I will do is I will use a clock division to trigger the first function. So here I have a clock division of 16, right? And this will be the trigger for the first function. And I will use it, the first function output A, to control the levels of the first voice through the level input. Let's set also a longer release or fall time. Let's wait for it. Right, and now we can use the second function to control the levels of the second voice. Again, also here, let's change the level, the times a bit. And I will use the end of cycle of the first function to trigger the second function. Right, maybe even longer. Right, can add some reverb to this. Right, so we get more space, more variation. It's a less dense sound. This can work with the third voice as well. So here I have psych going through a filter with some modulation, as you can see here. Right, so it's a sort of a bass voice, and I have here another envelope. I have here the AD envelope from Nischi. This is controlling the internal VCA of Psych. Psych has an internal VCA. So I can use now the end of cycle of the second function, right, to trigger this envelope for the bass. Right. Now this AD envelope from Nischi has also an end of cycle output, again that we can use to bring in even another voice. Here I have Basil, generating random notes with sample and hold. By the way, I'm using, as you can see here, the teleport modules from Little Utils, just to teleport the modules. So for example, I have here the clock, right? I have it going on in one module and out of the other, just so they are not, the cables are not everywhere here on the patch. But now what we can do, I have here again Bezel going through a VCA, I have another envelope controlling this VCA, this is going through some reverb, and sample and hold is generating random notes, and I can use the end of cycle of this envelope for the bass to trigger this envelope for the Bezel. Right, let's listen to this a bit. Another variation of this would be with using a Bernoulli gate. Here I have the one from Count Modular. It's called Chances. This can work also with branches from mutable instruments. And the idea here is to send your triggers or gates through the Bernoulli gate and have it switch either between two voices or between one voice and silence. And this it will do more or less randomly. So it will add chance for the incoming gate to come out of output A or output B. You can see this on the scope, and I can trigger it once. Now it was output B. I trigger it again, output A, again A, B, B, and so on. But there is also the latch mode that will keep the gate high as long as the respective output is chosen. So if I change this to latch, you can see now output B stays high. If I trigger it once, it switched to output A. Trigger it again, it stayed in A. Trigger it again, it stayed in A, and the gate is still open. Trigger it again and again. Now it's switched to B. So this mode can add even more space. Here again I have something ready. I have here a sequence with a modulo sequencer sequencing interzone from Valley. Now for now, interzone is droning, and this sequence is just repeating itself on and on. But let's do something like this. We will send interzone to a VCA first. Right, and we will have an ADSR envelope controlling this VCA. And we will use chances to randomly bring in this voice. So I have chances here. And I will use a divided clock. I have here a clock divided by 2 to trigger chances or to go to the input of chances. And again, I have it in latch mode, like we've seen before. So now if I use the one of the gates to gate the envelope, it will add more space to the sound. Right, so now there's a chance that this envelope will be gated from output A or not, and then we have more or less silence. Right, now another thing we can do is send the tail of this voice to a delay for adding a bit more texture. So here I have here Chronoblob 2. Again, also here I'm using the teleport modules, again, just so cables are not going everywhere. But what I have here, I have another VCA and another envelope controlling this VCA. And this is going to Chronoblob 2, and it's going to another channel on the mixer. Right, so what we will do, we'll send a copy of this voice of interzone after the VCA to the second VCA. And we will use output B of chances to trigger or to gate this envelope. Right, so only when this voice, only the tail of this voice will go to the delay. Right. and it will always catch a different note. Now, as I mentioned, we can also use this to switch between two different voices. So here again, I will bring this to the left a bit. Right, so here I have again chances. Again, it's in latch mode, and in this case, it's switching between two different FM operators. Right, they are both sequenced by the same sequencer, the ADDR sequencer, but I have one of them tuned 7 or playing 7 semitones up with a stack module from Borg Audio. Right, so let's have a listen to this, and again they will switch according to the probability that chances is giving. Right, so again it's taking a simple sequence and orchestrating it a bit, giving it a different feel, instead of just playing the sequence as it is. Right, now we just need a nice drone bass. I have here Vesek from Vult going through Nitrous, also from Vult. Oh yeah. Another fun thing you can try is using a comparator to bring in voices and effects in various times that are connected to the patch, so they are not always on and always playing, but rather playing with the patch and not against it. So basically a comparator will compare two signals, in this case an LFO and static voltage. The threshold for now it's on 0 volts. And whenever the LFO is going above or below this threshold, we get a gate out of the respective output. And by the way, if you want to know more about comparators and other basic building blocks of modular, I have a series of videos, a sort of a glossary in video form, all about the different basic aspects of synthesis in the modular environment, links in the description. So again, we have here the threshold on 0 volts. So whenever the LFO goes, in this case, above 0 volts, you can see the gate is open. If I switch it to the under output, whenever it goes below 0 volts, as you can see here, the gate is open. Again, I can change this to a different threshold. So let's say about 4 volts, right? So whenever it goes above this 4 volts, a gate will open, and the same with the under output. Whenever it goes below and stays there, a gate will open and stay open as long as it stays there. So again, I have an example here ready. I have here an ADDR sequencer or DADDR sequencer with a few expansion modules. So we have 64 steps. This is sequencing energy. Now we have energy going also through a chronoblock 2 through a delay. For now it's all the way down, but let's start bringing the delay up. Right, and this is nice, but we can add some space to it by bringing the delay in only on the higher notes, for example. So let's use a comparator. Again, I will use the same one. And I will set the threshold to 0.5, so 0.5 volts. And I will use the pitch information from the sequencer as the input signal. So now again, the comparator will compare the sequence to a threshold of 0.5. And what we will do is we will send once energy, we will send it once directly to the mixer, to one channel on the mixer before the delay. And I will send it also once through a VCA, right? So a copy of it to a VCA, and we'll use an envelope to open this VCA. We'll use the AD envelope from NIST. Let's connect it and raise the attack a bit and also the decay just a bit. Right, and now from this VCA, it will go to the delay, and the delay will go to another channel on the mixer. Right, so we have again the dry signal on one channel, and the wet signal that we will take the wet all the way up. The wet will be on a different channel. Right, and now what we will do, we will use the over output. Let me just move the comparator here. We will use the over output from the comparator to trigger the envelope. So only the nodes that have a value higher than 0.5 volts will open the VCA and will let the voice go through the delay. So not everything is going through the delay, only the higher values here. Right, adding space to the sound. I have here another voice. I have here the sequencer from JW, right? Sequencing an FM operator. And here I'm doing more or less the same, just that I'm using a different comparator. I'm using here the comparator from Hetrix CV. And this comparator has an extra output, the so-called cross output. So whenever the sequence, in this case, again, I'm using the sequence, whenever it crosses the threshold up and down, it will output a trigger, and this I'm using to trigger another envelope. And again, I'm sending a copy of this voice to a VCA and a delay, just like we did now. So this will be just the sequence. And now with a delay. So again, only certain notes will actually go to the delay. And I'm using the same comparator to bring in another voice. Whenever it goes above the threshold, it will open another envelope, and this envelope will bring in a bass voice that I have here with psych and tangents, and it's going already through some delay. Again, adding space. I also have here some hi-hats, and also here I'm using a comparator. So what I have hi-hats going through a delay, and then again once it's going directly to the mixer, and once it goes to another VCA, and again I'm using a comparator to trigger an envelope that opens this VCA. And now instead of using the sequence, I'm using sample and hold as my input signal, which means that this will happen more or less randomly. And instead of sending it to a delay, I'm sending it to a reverb. So this will again change the sound. This is just the hi-hats. And this is with the reverb. Another variation on this would be to split a sequence into multiple voices, again with using a comparator. So instead of one voice playing the whole sequence, multiple voices will play different sections of it. So here I have the sequencer from Sively. It's going through a quantizer through Quantum, and from there it's going to a comparator, and I have the threshold of the comparator set to 1.3 volts. So all the notes that are above, in this case 1.3 volts, will open the FM operator, which is going through some delay. We'll let the FM operator play to sound like this. Right, you can see here whenever the threshold is being crossed. Right, now something important that I'm doing here, if I change this, right, you can hear that we have sort of note tails, which can also be nice. But I wanted a change in pitch to be quantized to whenever the voice is being triggered. So I'm using a sample and hold here. I have a video, I uploaded a video recently all about sample and hold and what you can do with it. This is also there. But basically I'm sending the pitch first through sample and hold and then to the voice. And I'm using the same trigger I'm using to trigger the voice to trigger the sample and hold. So the change in pitch is also quantized. Right, so again we have here the first voice, and then I'm using the under output of the same comparator to bring in a different voice. In this case we have interzone going through sidechain compression. You will see this in a second with the bass drum and some chorus. And I'm using the same sequence, I'm using the same notes, just that this voice will come in at different times. Again, thanks to the comparator. Right, so again we have the same sequence, but different voices are playing different sections of this sequence. I have here another voice. This is Terraform, also from Valley, going through some delay and reverb. And I have another comparator, but it's using the same notes, the same sequence, just with a different threshold. In this case it's 0.8 volts. And I'm using again the over output, so whenever the sequence goes above 0.8 volts, this Terraform voice will come in. Right, just again adding space, orchestrating the voices. And I have here some drums just for fun. I have the gate sequencer triggering a bass drum with tremor 2, sound like this. And I have a snare, a glitchy snare going through some delay. And some hi-hats. Another powerful tool in Modular is a clock divider that will divide the stream of clock signals and can help us create space and add elements in different segments of a patch. So here I have a sequence again with the ADDR sequencer sequencing an FM operator going through some delay. It will sound like this. Right, and the first thing we can do is to gate this sequence so it will not play all the time, and this will add space to the sound. So for this we will use a VCA. And VCAs are also great for gating clock signals. So let's send the clock from the sequencer, from the clock, first to the VCA and then back to the sequencer. Right, and now we can use a clock division. For example, a clock division of 5 that I have here. The clock I'm using has built-in clock dividers. So I can use a division of 5 to open this VCA and let the stream of clock signals go through. So already we have something a bit more breathing and less intense. Now again, we can also use clock dividers to bring in voices at different times. So here I have noise, I have white noise going through a low pass filter, and again some delay, and I have a clock division. In this case it's a clock division of 61 to bring in this voice every now and then. So I will unmute it and I can trigger it for now, just so we don't have to wait so long. Right, so we have also this noise coming in every now and then. And now in combination also with the burst generator, we can really get interesting moments or interesting feels every now and then. So here I have the one from Repelzen, right, and it will sequence the energy oscillator going again through some delay. And I'm using again the divided by 5 clock, but I'm dividing it with another clock divider. This one is from Count Modular. I'm dividing it by 16, right? So it will sound like this. So again, all of those voices, the noise and this burst will happen every now and then according to the clock division, and can create tension and moments in your patch. I have here another voice. Another bass voice, again with psych and tangents. This is being sequenced by the modulo sequencer, but again I'm gating the clock for this sequencer with another clock divider and the VCA. Right, so the bass will play the notes, and then each time it will stop on a different note. Now it stopped on C. Now it stopped on G, right? So it will stop on a different note. So we can, again, clock dividers for adding more space and movement and variation. Here I have some texture voices. I have another clock divider. This one is from SynthKit. It has different divisions, as you can see here, 3, 5, 6, and so on. And I have two of them triggering hi-hats. In this case, it's more of a noise, actually, going through some delay. Let me unmute this. Just like this. And here I have tremor 2 being triggered most of the time at audio rates, which can create a really nice effect. And again, I'm using a clock divider to bring in this voice every now and then. So let's listen to this patch a bit. Right, and that was it. You can combine the different things we looked at and create different orchestration effects, create movement and variation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Cheers.